You got to sell to the people who are going to buy from you. On today's episode, we're going to go about talking about how you can make this happen as a sales professional. This is a good one. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode today, we have a fantastic guest. Her name is Kay Miller, and she wrote an amazing book that I want you to go check out. We have a link down in the show notes. It's called Uncopyable Sales Secrets: How to Create an Unfair Advantage and Outsell Your Competitors. You can find it on Amazon. We have a link down in the show notes below. As well as in this episode today, Kay she shared so much of wisdom and gave so many good things away. Then afterwards, she's like, Donald, I want to give it even more. And I was like, what? So she has a free offer that you can get. You can find all the information about that again in the show notes. Check out the free offer from Kay. I'll remind you about it. But on this episode today, Kay is going to break down. She is a speaker, and she has been a very successful sales professional. Work a lot now with teams and companies and individuals to help them improve their sales skills. In particular, she talks a lot about the notion of making sure you're selling to the right people, because the last thing you want to do is sell to the wrong individuals. Now, you may be selling to different tiers of prospects. The issue that I find often with sales professional is that they get so narrow-minded on the or get so broad that they try to sell to everyone. They get to this belief that everyone need their product, that they don't get down to the narrow-mindedness, I should say, on the type of people who are going to be best fit for their organization. So you're going to hear some things that Kay shared today. I want you to take it and apply it. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, please consider subscribing as well as leaving us a rating and review. It would be greatly appreciated. Let's dive in and see how Kay can help us to build some pipeline. Kay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Donald. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. We're gonna figure out how can we can become so effective in our process, and specifically as a sales professional, we want to know the best ways to be able to increase those close rate. And I know you have a strategy, and it may have to deal with a description of an animal that can help us with that. Before we dive into all that fun stuff, tell us a little bit more about what you do. When it comes to your practice?
Well, I am currently doing sales speaking and consulting after a long career in sales. And of course, I have a book that published May. I don't know if you can see the whole thing, May of last year. And I have to give you a shout out too, because these books are like sisters from a different mister, or brothers from a different mother, or something, because the content is so similar. We are so on the same page about really serving the customer and, being unique and, finding out what the customer needs and fulfilling that need versus just like, throwing up on the customer. We're so great, and here's why you should buy it. Right?
Yeah. And it's interesting how that strategy is still doesn't it doesn't take a back seat. People are still doing that, and it fascinates me and boggles my mind why they feel it work. I think because it's just easy to do so, and they think selling is telling. But like you outlined, and like principles shared, it's not so much about like just puking. It's let me serve you.
Yes.
Let me figure out what I can help you with.
Like you said, I am just amazed at all the emails I get. And my new current annoyance is LinkedIn pitches. People wanting to connect. Oh my gosh. I can tell, can totally relate. And, it's just, what do you guys have to say about that? I'm sure a lot.
Oh, we can go on for days on that one. So we have a course on LinkedIn, and it's one of the strategies that I teach people is they come to me right away and say, yeah, what do I need to do? How do I go about getting the appointments on LinkedIn? I'm like, first off, stop your pitching on LinkedIn. Like you can genuinely connecting with people, engaging with, sharing relevant content and engaging with people who share your content. You'll be amazed how many conversations start. And from that, it sparks people's curiosity. It's one of my student that went to our last cohort. He was like, so Donald, you're telling me this whole thing. It was like going through the training, one of our group meetings cohorts. And he's like, it's just like having conversations and building relationships And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
it's like
pretty
it's
much
sales.
it.
It's old school
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah. I know. Well, and it's so funny because I think as salespeople, and trust me, all of the things I write in my book, I'm guilty of not doing. We get so excited about what we're selling, our product or service, but we really need to take a step back and think, how would I feel if I got this pitch? Years ago,
That's the key.
yes. So years ago, my husband heard a presentation, and it was called, "Would You Be Married to You?" And
Mm,
what a great question, because, if, I know you're married, I'm married, it's always about what the other person should do, right? But we
yeah.
don't look and say, okay, I'm looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right. Am I Mr. or Mrs. Right? So
Hmm.
that is so important in the sales conversation, to take off your selling hat and imagine what the customer is going through. How would you feel if you got that pitch? That
Yeah.
that just simplifies it, right? So
And I think that's it's like you said, it's and I've done it too. I think we're all guilty of it, and that's why we listen to shows like this to be able to learn, because there's an easy way, and then there's an effective way, and an effective way is not always the easiest way. One of my last conversation the gentleman was talking about was being thoughtful in the outreach messages that you send. But I'm telling you, Kate, it's super easy to be able to put get a type of a list of folks, put them in an email sequence, and then to just send it on blast.
right, spray and
Which,
pray, right?
yeah, it's like, and it's IT directors, and they all work for this type of company, and more than likely they have this pain, but it's not me finding out about this IT directors, taking 5 minutes to look at them, and then doing a thoughtful message on that. Yeah, it's crazy, but anyhow,
That's, like you
it's
said, that's why we're here. And like I
yeah,
said, I'm not lily white in this either. And it
no,
seems like blasting is easier, but it really, in the long run, it is not, because your
yeah,
closing rates will be horrible and you'll end up
hmm
wasting a lot of time. You talked about this animal I talk about. And I don't know if you can see the moose in my background. I think
uh-huh,
it's just okay. You can see that on the screen. So the moose is what we call, in the Uncopyable philosophy, your target market. And I know you are all on board with that, finding out your very best customer, who's going to be the most likely to buy, who's going to get the best value and be best served. It's really a win-win when you find the person
yeah,
that will be, that is the best fit. So your upfront research on deciding who is the very best moose. And the analogy for moose does come from hunting, because there's a story behind it I tell in the book, but if
hmm
you were a moose hunter, anytime you wasted hunting rabbits or not rabbits, not moose,
deer,
rabbits or deer or bears or anything else, takes away from the time that you should be spending targeting your ideal customer, so that you can have a specific message for them that will resonate and get them to respond, get them to
yeah.
want to have a conversation and want to do business with you.
Yeah. So why don't you go deeper onto that component? Because we know that's what's going to help us boost our close rate. We let the cat out of the bag on this one, but obviously it's the how. How do I go to identify those folks? And then, if you don't mind going deeper and to tell us how you came up with you mentioned the hunting, but why did you choose a moose and so forth with that?
As far as wait, what was the first part of that
Yeah.
question? You gave
Sorry.
me two questions.
I know, right? The infamous Donald.
Oh,
Well,
how do you
I guess
decide
we'll
who?
tie it.
Yeah,
Yeah. How do we decide?
how to
So
determine?
yeah. So maybe we could answer the second question first, which is like, what was your focus on the moose in the first place? Like, what led you to use the moose as to give the comparison, and then how do we go about doing so if I'm a seller trying to identify that moose?
The analogy of the moose comes from my husband, Steve Miller, who is not the rock star, but he has written many books on
Dang it!
marketing. I know, Fly Like an Eagle. That's not him.
Fly like an eagle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Um, and when he was young, a young guy, he wanted to break into the speaking industry, and he actually attended the Crystal Cathedral in Southern California. Dr. Robert Schuller, a very prolific author, just wonderful, positive influence in the world. Steve was a member of that church and asked Dr. Schuller, I'm interested in getting into speaking, because he'd spoken at the church, and Dr. Schuller had said, hey, you're a really good speaker. And Steve asked him and said, well, how will I find people? How would I find people who are interested in hiring speakers? And Dr. Schuller was the one that said, how do you hunt moose? So around, it seemed like an interesting question, but then he went on with that analogy and said, if you want to hunt moose, you have to find out where they hang out. What is their language? What is their food? What kind of a moose bait would you need if you wanted to hunt a moose, and maybe even what type of a moose gun? So he really went down that analogy, and it really stuck. And so, it's just amazing with our clients, and all through these years, it's one thing to say, who is your target market? Who is the ideal prospect? Who's your avatar? Those different, phrases or ways to speak about that. But when we started saying, who is your moose, it became so powerful. That visual, the idea of that moose. In fact, look at this. There's my coffee cup. Orange, which is our branding color, which sets us apart, and the term moose are really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Once you are, have some experience as a salesperson, unless you're starting from scratch, I think the best way to determine your moose is to look at your current customers. Who have you made sales to that are just the easiest to work with, make you the most money, are the happiest? We all have difficult customers at times. We've had to fire clients. The moose are the opposite. They are the ones who are a pleasure to serve, and who really resonate with the value that we are presenting.
Yeah. I think go back to that notion you said is, the success leave clues in that idea. So who have you served? And you mentioned a word too. Well, who's the easiest to work with? When I sold software, one of the things that our customer service department told me, they were like, don't sell to these type of customers. They could buy our products, but these are the ones that don't call back. They don't have any issues. They use the software and they enjoy it. And I was like, huh. And it's basically the moose. They gave me that moose, like the city, county governments with 30,000, population or whatnot, that 30 to 50,000, and these, focus on the IT director and HR and finance. And he gave me these paths to follow, and I was like, thank you. But it was essentially that.
Yeah, and really, successful salespeople have a strategy, and we haven't really talked about my background, but it's in the book.
Please.
That I was. I worked in a couple different male-dominated fields, and my first job, I was the first woman ever hired. And then because I did well there, I was hired by an automotive muffler and catalytic converter company. I even
What?
I got the nickname Muffler Mama, which people think of me as Muffler Mama. And it's a nickname that no one has ever fought me for. But I know, right? I became the number one salesperson in the US for this huge, one of the largest muffler manufacturers in the world. And even though I followed so many of the uncopyable concepts of serving the customer like you do, meeting their needs. But it started with strategy. I really had to look at which kinds of accounts will add the most to my sales. You just can't just go out willy-nilly cold calling and just off the top of your, off the cuff or whatever, calling on customers. You really need to start with a strategy. And sometimes it might be easy to figure that out, and sometimes it might take more work, but the work is definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what you say there, of doing the work in the first place. I think it's very, again, there's idea of work, and there's the idea of just like, laziness. And if you go back to an effective hunter, with the moose, they're gonna make sure that you, like you said, the gun may be the best. Is it a moose gun? Do I have the right caliber that I'm trying to utilize to take down the moose, or am I using do I need to change the type of shoes that I'm wearing that it doesn't make enough sound when I step on twigs or whatnot? I'm making this all up, but the point I'm going back to is
You're nailing it though. You're totally nailing it. Are you a moose hunter?
yeah, I go out. But I have gone on hunts for moose, but I've been distracted, like you said, by the rabbits because I get desperate. Like, okay, looking at I need to hit my quota here, so let me just get a couple rabbits. But taking me off trail from where the moose is going, where the moose is, go back to Napoleon Hills. Think and Grow Rich. Maybe I was 3 feet away from gold or 3 feet away from the moose, but I got distracted by something else. And I think when you don't have that distinction of knowing that person, like you're saying, and then also the discipline to stick with that, that's when you find yourself in a whole heap of problems as a sales professional because you don't give enough time to see the results. You're just, going back and forth and trying to find the easy, quick wins.
Right. It's, the old busy versus productive. And, the other thing is if you really hone in on your moose, a particular moose, then you can spend the time and energy to get to know them, to learn a little bit about them so that you can reach out. And we have a saying that we love in our, the uncopyable philosophy, is where value is clear, the decision is easy. So we really need to show that customer the value to them. And I listened to a couple of your recent podcasts, and I remember, one of your guests was talking about the what's in it for me, the WIIFM. And like it or not, that is just a universal truth. Customers want to know what's in it for them.
Yeah. And I think there's, the more you can focus on helping them achieve that, the more they feel like, oh man, I like talking to this person. This person actually cares for me. They're in it to make my company win and not just to get a fat commission. And it just makes such a big difference for the conversation.
Right. Yeah. The way it's, when you can achieve a win-win, that is just really, it's just what it just says, it's good for them and good for you.
You mentioned though that there's some things that I should be doing as a sales rep. I could look at past customers, but I'm a seller. Isn't this my marketing and my sales leader's job to do some of this work for me?
Well, it never pays to pass the buck. Of course, you hope.
Good.
Of course, you hope that your marketing team is doing what they need to do. You might be a small business like we are, and we are the marketing team. So we have through the years done marketing that gets the right customers to raise their hand, and that is when we can approach them and really explain the value that that we have to offer. So, but we have to do it also in a way that's unique and uncopyable. One of the things I talk about is getting in the door, because we talk about the LinkedIn pitches and how we're just all overwhelmed with spam. And it's really finding a unique way to reach out to the customer. Maybe we do use direct mail. When we have a moose that's worth it, we spend the time and energy to send direct mail. And we have a lot of different creative things that we do to get the attention of the customer, because, the people that we are trying to sell to, they are, getting sold by a lot of people. So we really need to take a different tack.
What are some of the things that you do that you implement as you're sending stuff to them?
Well, we do have, we send greeting cards, and we will usually put their picture on the greeting card. So that is something that when you open up a piece of mail and it's got your picture on it, I mean, that makes a huge impression. And with social media, you can get people's pictures very easily. You can send, when our branding color is orange.
Yeah.
And so we send a lot of things out that are congruent with our brand. Everything is orange. When we find a really good prospect, we send what we call a shock and awe package, where we send our books and, a lot of different orange things that really capture their attention and show from the very first interaction that we're different and that we will
Mm,
help them be different. So, if, in my book, I have a lot of the specific things that we use to actually get in the door. And then once you're in the door, of course, you really have to find out what the customer's all about, their problems, their aspirations. And, one of the biggest mistakes that salespeople do is talk too much. And, of course, it's awesome to be on podcasts because that's our job, right? But as
sure.
salespeople, we really need to listen to them. Once we get their attention in a unique way, we need to listen to what they are saying and really uncover the pain that we can solve.
Mm. Yeah, and I go back to the old saying: you have two ears to listen and one mouth to talk. So listen twice as much as you talk. And there's a whole bunch of truth to that. But you go back to the statement that one of the questions I'd asked before about the sales leader versus the sales rep, and I think the intuitive seller goes back to that. See the buck doesn't they don't pass the buck, but they also sees the fact that they're in control of their territory. They're in control of their income, in control of their pipeline. And they're going to be the ones that are going to do whatever is necessary to help the client based on what the client's saying, listening to them, and giving them exactly what they need from that standpoint.
Exactly. And I think,
Um,
work ethic has a huge impact on your sales success. I mean, all the sales successes I have had, I've worked for it and it's fun, it's gratifying, and it's also very profitable, but it
mhm.
does take effort.
the you mentioned direct mail. You obviously mentioned personalization in the outreach to them. What else do you find that helps you to be able to, when you find these moves, to be able to help them to convert and eventually close, so to speak?
I think people really, the listening aspect and the fact, that when you say, I want to help you solve your problem, I want to get to know you, that really opens people up because they're so used to salespeople that just talk and talk. So I feel like, in fact, in the book, I have an example of someone who sent a greeting card with the prospect's picture on it. But the message was, I have learned about your business. I know you're very successful. I believe there's more out there. Can we
Mm,
talk about how to go get that? And she had been trying to call this person and he wouldn't take her calls, all the voicemail, gatekeepers, no emails back. He ended up calling her. And I
wow.
think that's how desperate buyers are, to find someone who really wants to help them and are willing to listen and pay attention and help be on their team. I still have a letter that I kept from one of my first outside sales jobs, the one with the muffler company. And yeah, and the customer wrote a letter to my boss saying, Kay is an asset to our team. So when you
Wow.
provide that kind of value to a customer, they will, talk to you, have a conversation. I'm sure you have this situation too, where a lot of customers have become your friends. So it
Yeah.
goes beyond just business. It's, we really want to find ways to help people. That's, there's nothing better than that.
No way. By all means, I agree with you 100% with that. Um, I know this is later on in the book, but in chapter 7, you talk about the idea of thinking like Sherlock Holmes. I believe that's what it was. Do you mind talking to that a little bit? Because I think that could tie back into this notion of being able to find problems and help people out with that.
Definitely. The Sherlock is, it's really an expansion on not just listening, but from the very first contact, paying attention to the clues that you can find. And
Mm,
I give an example in the book of many years ago, I went to a palm reader at a street fair. And it was just such a fascinating education because this woman was on the edge of her seat. Yes, she was looking at my palm, but she was also looking at me and watching every movement that I made, my body language, my eye contact, the tone of my voice. And she was brilliant. I don't think she was really reading my palm. I think she was reading me.
Yeah.
Right? She had my number. So that's where it starts. But as you get into asking the customer what is important, what their needs are, you can actually cater your solution to what they're, what's most important to them. So the Sherlock is not just asking a question, because we often ask a question and then while the other person's answering, we're thinking about what we're going to say next, right? It's asking another question and another, and really getting to the bottom of what's important to a customer. They might say they're buying a cheaper product because they want to save money. Well, why? Because they want a higher profit margin. So educating them on, and saying, well, what would happen if you could save time? I'm working with a particular client now, and they sell it's an industrial event tent washing machine, and they're competing with somebody who sells it for less. But the truth is that cheaper machine will cost the customer way more in labor, in water and time and breakdowns, all those things. So why are you buying a cheaper product? We want to save money. Can we look at the bigger picture? What would it mean if you could do this, this, and that? So Sherlock is really a way for us, again, to visualize the process that we need to be doing. You're finding your moose, your ideal customer, and then you're going to be like Sherlock and be a detective to get to the bottom of what's really important to them.
I mean, there's so much great stuff that you share, and I know we don't have time to go through all of that. If folks are excited to learn from you and to check out the book and to get access to it, Kay, where did it go to get access to the book or to get access to you?
Well, the book, like yours, is on Amazon. So if you search Uncopyable, you'll either get my book or my husband's books, which are all great, but mine is Uncopyable Sales Secrets on Amazon. LinkedIn, I'm open to connections who will not pitch me. So LinkedIn, I am Miller K. So just my name, backwards, Kay Miller, but it's Miller K on LinkedIn. And my website is uncopyablesales.com, and you can find more information there.
So folks, we'll go ahead and we'll put all that information in the show notes so you can get access to Kay and all the cool things that she has. Kay, thank you for taking the time to come on the show. Thanks for helping us to be able to discover our moose, and we appreciate you tremendously as we go out and boost these sales.
It's been a delight. Thank you, Donald.
That was Kay Miller, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, go hunt them moose. Get them the tools that you need. Do you know your moose? Do you know who's that person, that company, that prospect that you go after, that you're best suited to serve? If you don't know who those people are, the best suited to serve, let's figure out a way to fix that, man. Go back into the book that Kay has. Go back into this episode, listen to some of the things that she's sharing, and let's figure out how to fix it. Because your company may have, you may have a lot of market dominance. Yes, a lot of people could buy from you, but there's probably an optimal individual that's going to spend the most money, that's going to invest in your organization, that's not going to worry a balk about the pricing of the solution. You want to find those people, the ones that are easy to sell to, as Kay mentioned. Man, I love this episode so much. I want you to check it out. I want you to be able to share it with others. I want you to apply it. This is the only way you're going to improve. If you love this podcast, please leave us a rating and review. Tell someone else about the show. And also, if you're tired of just struggling, trying to find people, and as Kay and I were joking about, if you're tired of getting bombarded or you're trying to do some of those LinkedIn pitches and you're not seeing success, check out our LinkedIn program. Go to thesalesevangelist.com/LinkedIn. We teach you strategies to help you to generate at least 3 appointments per week without spamming on LinkedIn. Promise you that. Find all the details in the show notes. As always, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to build a better pipeline. I want you to be able to convert more of that pipe. I want you to raise your level of thinking and go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching.